Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Always a joy to return to Neville Goddard. We have a new, wonderful lecture, Counting the Cost, which really has some very interesting stories about imagining for others to make money, among a variety of new concepts and new stories that we haven't heard before. Counting the Cost by Neville Goddard, delivered on November 19th, 1963. Tonight's subject is counting the cost. In the Gospel of Luke, the 14th chapter, he asks a certain question. Which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost, whether you have enough to complete it? Verse 28. So you and I are called upon to count the cost. It's not in dollars and cents. That's not the coin that you use. God counted the cost when he decided to transform us into himself. It's a frightening cost because God actually became us. He didn't pretend to become a slave. He became one. As we are told in Philippians, Jesus Christ, who though in the form of God emptied himself, taking upon himself the form of a slave, being born in the likeness of men. He actually took upon himself the form of a slave. And this mightier self that is our self, who is Jesus Christ, is your own wonderful human imagination. Completely emptied himself and assumed the form of a slave, and now he serves us in the capacity of a slave. A slave does not question the order given by his master, he only obeys. For today he serves us as indifferently and as quickly when our will is evil as when it is good. I can conjure in a second, a split second, the most horrible picture or the most wonderful loving picture, and he does it. He is my own wonderful human imagination, who gave up his primal form, his prenatal wholeness, and took upon himself the form of a slave, which is my own wonderful human imagination that serves me in this capacity. Now tonight, I want to take it on this level of Caesar, and show you how on this level, we do the same thing, just as he gave up everything to become me, to transform me into himself, so that I may wear the form of God and wear that primal form that is eternal. So today I give up two certain things, but I must count the cost. Well, how would I go about counting the cost? If I wanted to be other than what reason tells me that what I am, well, this is how I do it. First, I must know what I want to be, and then I conjure in my mind's eye a certain imagery, which imagery implies the fulfillment of my dream. And then this is where I now count the cost. Do I have the necessary persistency, the necessary faithfulness, the necessary power that in spite of all things, to the contrary, I will persist? Do I have these virtues? Am I willing to start with what I have in the hope that it is really enough to build the tower? For the word translated tower means a simple watchtower, as we are told in Habakkuk. And now I will stand and watch and take my station upon the tower, and I will look forth to see what he will say unto me, and what I will answer concerning my complaint. The Lord answered me and said, Write the vision, make it plain upon tablets, that he may run who reads it. And then comes the promise. For the vision has its own appointed hour. It ripens, it will flower. If it be long, then wait, for it is sure, and it will not be late. Here you find these three verses of 2nd Habakkuk 2:3. This is the tower spoken of in the book of Luke. I will stand upon my tower. So I bring before my mind's eye a certain imagery. I bring you, my friend, and hear you discussing each other, and your discussion is all about my good fortune. I listen as though I actually heard you say that I want everyone to say. I listen and persuade myself I'm actually hearing it. And then have I now the courage in spite of tomorrow, when everything denies it? Have I the persistency? Have I the faithfulness? By faithfulness, I mean loyalty to this unseen reality. So here it is unseen. But to me, it's real. I'm seeing it vividly in my mind's eye, but it hasn't yet objectified itself upon the screen of three-dimensional space so that you may share it with me. Well, can I remain faithful? Can I remain loyal to this unseen reality until it becomes something I can share with the world? Have I that coin? So the coin I use is not the coin of Caesar. It's the coin of God. He knew exactly the price he had to pay when he decided to transform me into himself, for he had to grant me all the freedom in the world to make mistakes. He had to become my slave and wait upon me just as swiftly when my will was evil as when my will is good. He couldn't discriminate and say you shouldn't do it. He has to wait upon me and let me make all the mistakes in the world as he slowly transforms me into his form, that I, too, may bear the form of God. So just as Jesus Christ, who, though he was in the form of God, emptied himself and then took upon himself the form of a slave, and was born in the likeness of a man, not a man 2,000 years ago. You are the man in which Jesus Christ is born. Every child born of woman is Jesus Christ, born in the likeness of man. And now in the depth of that soul is one's own wonderful human imagination, which is Jesus Christ, a slave of that man. And he takes the part of the slave in the true sense of the word. He only obeys. He doesn't suggest anything in this world, only obeys your wonderful vision, and he will, in the twinkle of an eye, conjure up the most horrible animalisms in the world and lust at the call of your desire. And the same one does it that will conjure to me, if I so desire, the most loving thing in the world. The same being, not another being. There's only one God, and that God is Jesus Christ, forming us from what we are into, what he was when he gave himself up to become us, and that is God himself. So here's a story. Last month in New York City, this lady came to me. She brought her husband, nice-looking chap, tall, fine, handsome-looking fellow. She said, "Do you recall my story of last year? I was at my wit's end, and I told you my husband, who I consider a very fine lawyer, he graduated from one of our greatest universities, and here at his age, he was then only 40. He was only earning $87 a week in a very large law firm. I asked you if I could apply this technique for him without his consent, without his knowledge, because, trained as he is in the legal world, he could not conceive of the rational side of this picture at all. It made no sense whatsoever to him. So, could I, without his knowledge, without his consent, use this technique to increase his income? And I asked you if I could take it and double it. You said to me, double it, treble it, make it 3 times, or make it more than that. A man trained as he is trained years at a great university at the age of 40, only making $87 a week. Why, that's insane. Triple it." Well, she said, "Now I want you to meet my husband." So I met her husband. She said, "He's now making $300 a week. Now, this is what I want, Neville. I want him to be a judge." I said, "All right. Does he want to be a judge?" So I said to him, "Would you like to be a judge?" He said, "Yes, I think I would be a very good judge. I have all the qualifications, and I think I'd be a good judge." I said now to her, I said, "Now you did it." He didn't do it. He didn't have a thing to do with this $300 a week. It simply came over the year to him, and now he is earning $300 a week. But you paid the price. You were very vigilant. You were persistent. You were faithful to the vision concerning your husband. Now I'm telling, not to him, I'm telling to you. Now that you are making $300 a week, don't you have someone who helps you out with cooking the meals, or maybe serving the dinner in your apartment, or cleaning the house? She said yes. I said, "All right. From now on, you only think of your husband as a judge. And so now you say to your servant, take a certain product to your husband, say a glass of water, a cup of tea, or whatever it is. You refer to him as the judge. Take this to the judge. Or would you please take to the judge an ashtray. Whatever it is you want to send to your husband, he is the judge. He is not just your husband, Mr. So-and-so. He's earned the right to be called judge, and you refer to him as a judge. When I come back here in May next year, I want him on the bench as judge. And do you know he's going to be judge if she will pay the price? If she is persistent, if she is faithful to that vision, referring always to her mind's eye, that even in her dream, she refers to him as the judge. I have a brother who is a doctor, and from the day he was married, and I give his wife 100% credit for this, she always referred to him as the doctor. She never once spoke to anyone in her household. She has a full complement of servants. There are 5 in the house and 3 in the yard, but anyone who had to take anything to my brother, Lawrence, when his wife suggested it, you take this to the doctor, or the doctor wants this done, or the doctor wants that done. Then she has 2 sons who are doctors, and she discriminates between her husband, the doctor, and her 2 sons. She calls them by name, Dr. Michael and Dr. Robert, but they are not the doctor. In her mind's eye, her husband, my brother Lawrence, is the doctor. Today, in Barbados, he is the most prominent doctor. He has the biggest practice, many doctors working for him, and a clinic with 30 beds, and so he's the most busy doctor in the island of Barbados. I go back to my sister-in-law, Doris's concept, which people laughed at when she started. For when he came out of McGill as a young doctor, in her mind's eye, he was the doctor, and always referred to him as the doctor. And Lawrence grew and grew and grew in the world of medicine. So I said to her, from now on, he has to be the judge. You take this to the judge. There's only one judge in your mind's eye, in your household, and that is your husband. You take it. Not only is he earning $300 a week, but the dignity that goes with this new position and increased funds and responsibility. Another one came from Baltimore, and he said, "Do you not remember my problem, Neville? My problem was money." Well, I want to tell you, I'm making 4 times what I made a few years ago when you and I discussed my problem. I think I can say from the actual evidence, I was vigilant. I was faithful. Today I'm making this 4 times more, and making it more effortlessly than I did when I made my bit of money, when it was really my problem. Now, this is the price you and I pay. Causation is mental. It is not physical. Causation is the assemblage of mental states, which occurring creates that which the assemblage implies. You can put it down. That's exactly what causation is. It's the assemblage of mental states, which occurring creates that which the assemblage implies. So I create a scene, and so I have a servant in my house, and I'm saying to the servant, take this to the judge. Here's one image, a servant, another image, something I'm going to give her, and then another image, a man. I refer to him as the judge. So here's the assemblage of mental states, which occurring creates that which the assemblage implies. What does this imply? He's not a judge at the present moment in time, but what is that conversation implying? It implies he is a judge. I'm asking to take this to the judge, and so she takes it to the judge. Then I must be persistent. I must be vigilant. I must be faithful. I must be courageous. Regardless of tomorrow's denial, I must be courageous and still live in this state. And when the day comes, I cannot predict it. I cannot tell you how it's going to happen. But they will see in him the man they want to be judge. Some party or affiliation, either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or someone, they're going to see in him the man they want to be a judge. And he will have no choice in the matter, because one woman unknown to the party sat in a certain mood, and she was faithful to that mood. And then they had to see him as she always saw him. She saw him as the judge. Well, this is how this fabulous law works. My brothers came to New York City last month and stayed 2 weeks with us. We got a suite of rooms on our floor at the hotel, so we were in constant contact. I bought a dozen shows for them. That is, seats to go to a dozen shows all in 2 weeks. But there was one thing my brother Lawrence wanted. Above all things, he wanted to see Ada, the opera. He loves music. He appreciates music. He understands music. My brother Victor had never seen an opera, so anything would be exciting to him. But Lawrence wanted to actually see and hear Ada. This year they've changed the format of Ada, the same music but new costumes, new scenery, and new format. And it's a sellout. You can't get near Ada in New York City now. In fact, in New York City, all the operas are sold out anyway. But when it comes to this present situation of Ada, well, it's just like very difficult. Just can't get near the place. Well, he wanted to see Ada. So I said, all right, you're going to Ada. Went down to the Metropolitan Opera, the four of us, my wife, my two brothers, and myself. We got there around 11:30 in the morning, and there were 2 long lines, 2 windows serving the entire crowd. They always sell 10 seats in advance at the Met. That is 10 operas. Not the same opera, but the next 10 performances are always sold in advance. So I got into line. It's a very long line. And then the other line was maybe 5 or 6 shorter, but my line wasn't moving. It was simply a static line because the one up front was asking 1,000 questions. Can I see from this one? Can I hear correctly? And these are the good seats for the money I'm paying. Well, the man was very kind and very considerate, and he answered her very gently, but it wasn't moving. I saw this line began to move, so I broke line and went over to this, and got at the end of it. It moved rapidly down toward the teller. Then I got to the teller. I was the second now in line. The man in front of me bought 2 seats for some opera. Which opera, I don't know, but the 2 seats were 2 little pink seats, and they were stuffed in an envelope and just about to be pushed to him at this very moment. Just as the man is pushing the seats to him, a tall man about 6'5" or 6'6" stuck his hand over my head from side to side, and he registered this man's attention and called his attention to the side. So the teller looked up this way and began to answer this man's question. At this moment, this man took 2 seats and pushed some bills under the window and started toward the door. The man thanked him for the question was answered, and the teller looked back and he sees 4 $1 bills. He said, "What is all this?" And the man is now almost to the street. So he looks through the window and he calls out, "Mister," and man doesn't respond. "Mister," he calls a second and third time. He doesn't respond. So I turned around and said, "Sir." At that he stopped. I said, You come right back here." And so he did that. So he came right back, came in front of me, and the man said, "What have you done? These are 4 $1 bills." He said, "I gave you 20. He said, "Oh no, you didn't." He said, "I gave you 20. I said, "Oh no, you didn't." He only gave him exactly what is there because I was standing here and saw exactly what you did. Whatever that is, that's all you gave him. You gave him no more because I was standing here. He looked at me this way, but did nothing. He just simply looked, and then he opened up his wallet. I could see a bunch of ones in the side of the wallet and a $20 bill tucked on the side. And then he said to the man, "I gave you $20. The man said, "You didn't." Closed the other window, came around. You heard the man. You said he was standing next to you, and he saw exactly what you did, so that's what you did. So the man now takes $4 back, puts the $20 into the window, and then says, "When will you discover your mistake?" The teller said, "I didn't make a mistake." He said, "When will you discover you have more in your cash box than you should have tonight?" And the teller said, "No, not tonight." He said, "When?" He said, "The end of the season." Could he argue with him? And they all loved that. This whole thing is unfolding just as I'm telling you, all by one's wonderful human imagination. So when I stepped forward, after the man takes his seats and leaves, and then I said, "What is that horseshoe right over the orchestra? I want it right over the orchestra, and I want 2 seats in the center for Ada next Tuesday night." He said, "Well, that horseshoe is called the grand tier." I said, "All right, then I will take 2 in the center of the grand tier for Tuesday." He didn't hesitate a second. He pulled the 2 seats, and I got my 2 seats. This is how the law works. I could not have plotted that. In that line was one in the state of a thief. No one's a thief. No one is honest. No one is this. They're only states. And so here's a line, and the line is broken. There's no one in that line that's in the state of a thief. But in this line, there's one that will play the thief. I'm determined I'm going to get 2 seats for my brothers, and so this line is frozen. This begins to move, and the depths of my soul moved me from this line, right here next to the thief, the one who's in the state of the thief. For he and the tall fellow were working together, the tall one waiting at the door for him. And so when this one paid the $20, took his $4 back and his tickets, at the end, the two began to talk. the very one who diverted the teller's attention. It was all a set-up job. These were states. He wanted to defraud the man of $16. I was not in the state of the thief, and walking down my deep being put me right behind him so that I could say, "You didn't do it at all," and protest this attempt to steal $16. The teller, now seeing that I protected him and saved him $16, gave me 2 house seats. These are reserved always for the VIPs, people who come at the last moment, like a president or a governor or some so-called important person. They're always kept back to the last moment to be sold only to the VIPs. But having served him faithfully and saving him $16, he didn't wait for 1 second to pull the 2 out, and I got my 2 for Ada. And it's a sellout. The sign is up, sold out. You can't get it. I never saw the sign. I just got right behind in this wonderful drama, a thief, and protested. And so the wonderful words of Lincoln, to remain silent when we should protest makes cowards of us all. And I have never once felt like being a coward. I'll rather die in the attempt to be what I would call the decent person than to be a coward by being silent when it's so obvious the man is trying to steal $16. And so this is how this wonderful law works. You don't have to worry about how it's going to work. You must count the cost. Are you willing to pay this price? And the price is simply your own vigilance, your own faithfulness, your own persistency, your own courage. Are you going to pay the price using this coin? Then your dreams will come true. I don't care what the dream is. So you want something that can't be obtained? It doesn't matter what the world says. Sold out means nothing. Hasn't a thing to do with it. You just get into the line and the line isn't moving. All right, the depth of your soul will move you out of the line to this line, but not just this line. He put me behind the very one who is plotting and planning his little scheme to get $16. And you're going to protest. Put you right behind him. And so right as he said, "I gave you $20, you automatically say, "You didn't. I was standing right here." Didn't do it at all. And so he's taken by surprise. He looks at me, but can't raise a finger to slap you, can't hurt you. You know exactly what you saw, and you do it. So this is how this law works. Are you willing to count the cost? For which of you desiring to build a tower does not first discuss and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Will you tonight count the cost and say, "I will complete it"? Tomorrow will deny it. Reason denies it. My senses deny it, but I will complete it. I will persist in feeling that which, if true, implies the fulfillment of my dream. And if you do it, no power in this world can stop you from realizing your dream, but no power, because causation is mental. It is not physical. And so I know, just as this lady, without the consent of her husband, raised his salary from his $87 a week to over $300 a week, she will raise from his position in his present office to judgeship in the city of New York. And the other chap who is at Kennedy, he's now earning many times what formerly he earned. He can go beyond it. As I said, you have a daughter just about ready to go to college, and I know if you want to send her to a private college, you're going to have to think in terms of not less than $5,000 a year. And so you think in terms of an extra $5,000 or $10,000 a year. You say that is selfish. Forget it. It's all part of your own wonderful imagination. If you can imagine yourself earning X number of dollars and you are persistent and you believe it and sleep as though it were true in a way you do not know, and no one could devise the means by which it will become a fact, it will become a fact if you are persistent, if you are courageous, if you view yourself as such a person. This is how it works. And so he actually, from the depths of my soul, he waits upon me just as indifferently and as swiftly when I am evil as when I am good. Let no one tell you that he only sells the good. No, both for good and evil. I kill, I make alive. I wound, I heal. I create the good, I create the evil. Deuteronomy 32:39. But you are invited to choose the good, to choose the blessing. but we aren't compelled, and he who serves as our slave will serve us just as swiftly when will is evil as when it is good. So let no one tell you he is not your slave. Jesus Christ, who, though in the form of God, emptied himself, taking upon himself the form of a slave, and was born in the likeness of men. Philippians 2:7. And so as you are seated here, now, the slave, your slave, that will make everything for you, is your own wonderful human imagination. That's Jesus Christ. He's actually buried in you and will form anything in this world if you will pay the price. Sit down and count the cost. Are you willing to be that persistent? Are you willing to stand upon your tower and actually watch faithfully? For you're building a tower, and the tower is only a watchtower, and I will watch and watch faithfully until what I am seeing comes to pass. So we are told the vision. What vision? Your vision, my vision. It has its own appointed hour. It ripens, it will flower. If it be long, then wait, for it is sure, and it will not be late. So you know exactly what you want in this world, either for yourself or for another. This lady did not consult her husband. She said he's too rational. He's trained in the legal world, and the mind is trained rationally. And so you couldn't possibly explain to him that this could work. So don't explain it to him. You bear his name and you want him to succeed because his success is your success. Well, then do it. And so I go back 1 year later, and then he is brought, not reluctantly this time, he's brought introduced to me, and he did not blush when I said to him in her presence, "Do you really want to be a judge?" And he didn't say timidly, he said yes, quite openly. Yes, I would like to be a judge. I think I would make a good judge. Then I addressed him as judge. Then I told her exactly what to do, and when she does it, he will be a judge. So do you know what you want to do? Maybe you will not bear a title like professor or doctor, or someone could refer to you as that. Doesn't matter. You conjure in your mind's eye a certain scene, which, if true, would imply a certain fulfillment in your life. Well, then see the scene and enter into that scene just as though it's taking place now, and persist in it. And that scene will come to pass and give birth to what the scene is implying. So causation is the assemblage of mental states, which occurring creates that which the assemblage implies. You can put it down and dwell upon it. That's how this law works. Because I tell you these stories, you would not for all the money in the world have bought the 2 seats. I paid no more than $20 for the 2 seats. That's exactly what they were selling for, $20. I didn't go to some scalper. I didn't go to some agent. I went straight to the box office. And here in the depth of my soul, because I knew exactly what I wanted my brothers Lawrence and Victor to see Ada. And so I went straight to the box office, and he puts me right behind one who is in a state of a thief and causes him to act, and then causes me to act in such a way that the teller is grateful for my defense of his honesty and gives me the seats. Now the man wasn't a thief. He may play the part of a thief for the rest of his days, but no one is a thief. He's in the state. When you are in the state of a thief, you can't do anything else but steal. You can't do it. There are only states, infinite states. So Blake said, if I do not consider the just or the wicked to be in a supreme state, but to be every one of them states of the sleep, which the soul may fall into in its deadly dreams of good and evil. And so he fell into a state, and that state was to get the better of other people all through his life. He will continue to do it until he gets out of that state. Either he gets out of it by his own efforts, or someone who will love him enough to get him out of that state. If he has a wife or a mother or a friend who knows the kind of state that he dwells in, and would like to see him out of that state, making just as much money, but this time honestly, they can get him out of that state. He is only in a state. All things are states. That's why in the end you can say, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. So I'm only expressing a state. Then don't condemn me. It's a state, and the states are permanent, and men move through these states. Not knowing they are only states, they express the state that they are in. And so if I return constantly to one state, you can call me by the name of that state. If I'm always stealing, I'm expressing this state of stealing. But if I live in it constantly, it's perfectly all right to call me a thief because I'm so identified with that state. So the state to which I most often return constitutes my truest self. But no matter how often I've been in the state of stealing, I could get out of it permanently, and never fall into it again. So everyone is at every time in his life just in a state. Now get out of the state that is not productive. If you aren't pulling your own weight in this world, that's embarrassing. Now construct a scene where you are not only pulling your own weight more than yours, actually feel it and see a scene implying that you're doing it. Let's have a scene when that was one of my visions. I remember when that vision came to me so vividly a few years ago, where I found myself in a scene, and the scene is giving me the most fantastic story to tell the world. The story is this. I found myself in an enormous mansion, and there were 3 generations present. Grandfather, then the other 2 generations. The 2 were now enjoying the great, fantastic estate, but because of the grandfather's vision. They would say, and I was taken into the spirit into this mansion, and they would say, grandfather would stand upon a lot, and while standing upon an empty lot, he would say, I remember when this was an empty lot. And then he would paint a word picture of his desire for that lot, and paint it so vividly, you saw it existing as an objective fact. Then I woke and wrote the vision down. It was early in the morning, about 3 or 3:30, so I went to bed, and I redreamed the dream. Redreaming the dream, I had a slight change in the dream. Instead of saying that grandfather said it, I had so absorbed the faith of the grandfather, I became the grandfather, and I said, I remember when this was an empty lot. Then I would paint the picture of my desire for this empty lot, and paint it so vividly everyone would hear me say it. I saw something objective to them. And then going back, as we are told in Scripture, if an event in your life is foreshadowed by a word of Scripture, it's predestined, it's fixed. So I went back and reread the Scripture, and here in the 41st chapter of the book of Genesis, the doubling of a dream means that the thing is fixed by God, and it will shortly come to pass. So my dream was doubled that night. I was taken in the spirit into the fantastic mansion and heard of certain secret of creativity. I woke, recorded it, fell asleep again, and redreamed the dream. So it was the doubling of the dream, and the doubling of a dream means that God has fixed the thing, and that will shortly come to pass. So when we double the dream, well, we not only fall asleep in it, you can double in it a waking dream. You can take it this night and see yourself as you would be seen by the world. Were you the man, the woman that you want to be? All right. That is a dream. That's a waking dream, but it's a dream. The same power that created the dream of the night is creating this. It's Christ Jesus in you, your slave. Now tomorrow, do the same thing. That's a doubling of a dream. And you can triple the dream. And that's persistency. That's vigilance. And that's faithfulness. And it will come to pass. So you take your wonderful, noble dream for yourself and for your friends and for others, regardless of the circumstances of the moment. If they're not in tune with your desire for what you want, well then ignore it and remain faithful to the dream, and then double dream. For that was shown me so clearly, for I was lifted in spirit into the mansion. I heard the conversation. Grandfather used to stand upon an empty lot, and he stood upon it, and he would say, I remember when this was an empty lot, and then paint his word picture of his desire for it. Well, I can say of a friend, I remember when he was unemployed. Well, if I say I remember when he was unemployed, I'm implying he's now employed. I remember when he only earned, and I name an amount. I remember when he only earned X number of dollars a year. Well, if I remember when he only earned that, I'm implying he isn't earning that now. He's way beyond. I remember her when she was not well. Look at her now. She must be radiantly happy and healthy if I remember when. And so you take this technique and apply it to everything in your world that conjures a picture. You bring someone before your mind's eye. I remember when he was simply unknown. Then what am I saying? He must be known. Of course, you can do this in a negative too. You can use it And just as swiftly, Jesus Christ in you, your own wonderful human imagination, will answer the call. You can say, I remember when he was known, when he was someone, when he had money. If you want to use it negatively, so I tell you, I acquaint you with God's law and leave you to your choice and its risk. For he in you will serve you as indifferently, and as swiftly when the will in you is evil as when it is good. So I can't deny that he will serve you, even when you are evil. So I leave you to your choice and its risk. It's like electricity, because it could kill. I shouldn't deny a man's use of it, because it has done so many wonderful things in the world, but it could destroy. So because it could destroy, why not use it constructively where it doesn't destroy and helps man? So I tell you, God's law, as we are told, blessed is the man who delights in the law of the Lord, for in all that he does he prospers. That's the first psalm, blessed is the man who delights in the law of the Lord, for in all that he does he prospers. So if you know the law and you delight in it, you will prosper. I only hope you will not use it negatively. But may I tell you, I have no power to stop you from using it negatively. I still must acquaint you with it and hope that you will use it constructively. But you could use it negatively, and he will wait upon you and respond to your call just as swiftly as though you used it in the most glorious manner in this world. But in the end, he is faithful to his picture for you and brings you out just like himself. I only hope you will not use it negatively, because I don't believe in this case that the hatching out is going to be delayed. But if you use it destructively, it may be a more painful process of coming to the end. But I can't conceive of a delay in the vision for man, and a vision for man individually. He calls us one by one. And so he's seen you in his mind's eye, and so loved you. He emptied himself of his primal form and took upon the form of a slave and became born in the likeness of you. And as you, he goes through all the furnaces of affliction, obeying your will. But he has a fixed date for the bringing of you out into his own wonderful primal form. So I do believe, and yet I cannot say that it's true. I believe if you use it negatively, you may find the birth more painful. At the end of these lectures, Neville would give 2 minutes of silence and then answer questions, as we will do here. Now, let us go into the silence. Question inaudible. Answer: No, my dear. I never consider the cost of what I want. I didn't want to see Ada. I go to the opera occasionally when I'm in New York City. When I'm willing to pay the price as God was willing to pay the price when he became me, when he became you. He did not impose upon us limitations of the use of him. He's our slave, and we could use him lovingly or unlovingly, but he knew the price he had to pay, and he is suffering. People don't believe it. If anyone wants to know the price that God paid to become you, to make you God, read the 53rd chapter of Isaiah. Read it over and over and over. That's the price to be paid. All the sicknesses of the world, God bears them. All the iniquities, he bears them. But there is one verse in it. He saw the fruit of his soul in travail and was satisfied, the result of his suffering when he decided to become me, to transform me into the form of God. Does that answer David? Question inaudible. All right, if I want to say X number dollars more than I earn, I must always be willing to assume the responsibility that goes with increased earnings. There are responsibilities. Some people do not accept it, but there is. If they don't accept it, they suffer. I must be willing to assume the full responsibilities of increased responsibility. It carries with it a certain burden, but it will not be a burden when you assume it. I can't foresee now what will be asked of me if I should transcend my present position, but something will be asked of me that I do not now foresee. But if I want to transcend it, let that be the vision, and then others will come and I will have the ability to really play the part well. I will. Question. Would you care to comment on the phenomena of meeting people in dreams who have passed on years prior and have received instructions on certain phenomena? Answer. You're told in the book of Numbers, the 11th chapter and the 12th chapter, would that there were a prophet among you, for I, the Lord God, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and I will speak with him in a dream. So we have in the scripture only one source of a dream, and that one source is God. All dreams proceed from God, so every dream has a great significance. I'm not saying that we are masters in interpreting the meaning of dreams. Many of us misinterpret them, but it does have a certain message for us if we can only interpret. For instance, there's a lady in the audience here tonight. May I tell you, the lady is Nordic. She's blue-eyed. She's a lady my age. She's been here tonight. And God was speaking to her. She saw a couple who are now dead. They knew her well when they were alive. They were Nordic. She was an engineer. She looked at him and remembered him well. Then she looked at the wife, and it's not the wife she knew here. Much younger, but the wife was Nordic. And then looking back, the wife is not the wife. She is negress. But it seemed so natural. But she was startled. And she's still Nordic. And she looked back at him and looked back in the girl, and she's Nordic. In the same dream, she goes to bed, the lady in the dream, and she finds herself sleeping in a reverse position in the bed. Her head is where formerly her feet would be. The whole dream is trying to show her something in the depths of her soul of a reversal. There's a great reversal taking place in man, where man is being transformed into God. That he's not reptilizing here forever on this level. He's being transformed. And all of these are reversals, that God is not a white man or a black man or a red man. The form that was the primal form of Jesus Christ before he emptied himself and then took upon himself the form of a slave and was born in the likeness of man, it's that form that man eventually will be raised to wear. And it's not this form. So she was shown in this lady, as I say, she is the essence of the Nordic, blue eyes, and undoubtedly when she was young, I think her hair must be very blonde. I don't know, I only know her in the years that I have known her here, in the last 8 years or so, but she's very, very fair-skinned, and yet in this, it didn't seem strange to her. She knew the people and the man who was an engineer. When she saw him, she knew she was the same man, but suddenly he's not Nordic, he's Negro. The girl was not the wife, and she knew she was married, the same girl, and she was Negro. So was this fabulous dream trying to tell her? It's trying to tell her a marvelous story. Don't be concerned with all the conflicts of the world. That's just the plot of it all. This isn't God. Just remain faithful to his promise to you. And he's promised you to give you himself. And he's not this body. The form he gave to take up on this, the form one day you will wear, and you will be God. And there is only Jesus Christ in the world. He gave it up, his primal form, and took the limitations of this state, your own wonderful human imagination, and then was born in your likeness. And tomorrow he will not be anything you see here. He'll return to its primal form, and the form is God, and you will be like him. So the dream of the night, I could not honestly, I'm not an analyst in the sense of trying to analyze dreams. I would like to ask every person who comes to me with a dream, what does the symbolism mean to you? What does this person in your life represent when you knew him here? And so if I could get an honest response from this individual as to what he meant, then I might be able to throw some light on the experience that he had with that person. Because I don't know. If it comes to me symbolically, well, then I would try to find help by going to, say, my works, the lost language of symbolism, and try to open up and read with an open mind. Why did I encounter the rock? Why did I encounter the pig? Why did I encounter the dove? What is the sense of the meaning of it? For these are simply a universal language, but the other, when I meet the individuals, then I know, well, they may be here or on the other side of the veil. What did they do to me when I knew them as friends or enemies? What's the significance? At this point, the tape ends, and this ends the lecture, Counting the Cost by Neville Goddard. Another wonderful lecture, has 2 great techniques that you can use. If you want somebody in your life to change, you have somebody that's a lawyer that you want to become a judge, then you call them the judge. If you want them to be a writer, you call them the writer. If you want them to be the movie star, you call them the movie star. Whatever it is, you treat them and put them in that state. And also the remember when is one of the most powerful techniques that Neville teaches. You start to go back and look at stuff that you want to have happen in your future, and you remember when. It really accesses a different part of your brain that remembers things, which also fundamentally sidesteps the requirement to have faith in something, because when you remember something, you know for sure it happened. So it's a really powerful technique when you start using the I remember when. I remember when I was poor. I remember when I was sick. I remember when I was unemployed. But also saying that for other people. It implies the opposite. It really is a powerful way. If you want to think a thought in that way, you sort of subvert the requirement to have a deep belief or faith in it. All of these techniques are great, and you can help people even without their knowledge or permission. But you want to help them, in my own belief, as he explains in his book, Prayer, the Art of Believing. The key is if you imagine negatively for someone else, remember, as Neville explains, as we know from the Law of One, you're imagining for yourself. So if you imagine negatively for someone else, then you're imagining for yourself. And if you imagine something that somebody wouldn't want to have happen for themselves, it will happen to you. You imagine a car accident for someone, you'll have a car accident yourself. So he warns you not to imagine negatively. The imagination will work, but it could work against you. So he doesn't give that warning in this particular lecture, but it's a warning he gives in other lectures. So you want to imagine lovingly. You want to imagine for others lovingly, and you can use these techniques. And these are simple techniques. The beauty of Neville Goddard is the simplicity of his techniques. Bring the water to the judge. That's all you got to say. Use that in your life. If you have a partner that you want to raise up, then do that. Ask your kids, can you bring this Coke to the judge, and see what happens, whatever it is that you want to use. So I'd love to know if these techniques have worked for you, what you think about this particular lecture. Let me know if you have any particular lectures you want me to read in the future. Of course, we try to read one every Monday on Neville Monday. Be sure to purchase a copy of the Aura trainings that we have available, the Alternate Universe Reality Activation Program, which allows you to activate new powerful realities. Also, this is recordings from the RealityCon, and we had a full discussion of Neville Goddard from a sort of different view, and we kind of go deep on that with questions that we asked amongst ourselves. And so you should check that out, and we will be having a new RealityCon very soon. Just wanting to send loving thoughts and imagining wonderful things for everyone listening to my voice. All episodes of The Reality Revolution can be found at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.